Take a deep breath.
Yes.
And I saw you, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's better at dancing than I am. People didn't have to be dying anymore if they took the treatment.
But given we are all walking towards death in some form or the other at some
Yeah, we're all
point.
walking towards death, absolutely.
So you are like, let's close this even in a better place when we closed it the last time 4 years ago.
Also, when you're always pushing people away, your world gets very small because you're only comfortable with people that are just like you.
So I'm here today with Nathaniel, who has started this camp called as?
Spirit Camp.
So what is Spirit Camp, Nathaniel?
Spirit Camp is an experiment where people get to learn to work together, play together, work on their projects. It's like an incubator for the soul and for new ways and new tech in the world.
So how far is it from the real tech hub of San Francisco?
It's only 3 hours away, and it's a beautiful drive.
And you lived in San Francisco for a while, and then you were like, hey, I want to create...
Yeah, I needed to be in nature. I needed to be in a place that was more expansive. I also needed a place where my friends could come join and work together, network together, co-create together. And it was too expensive to create co-creation spaces in the Bay.
Very cool. And like, what is like the whole thinking about the experiments that you're trying to run here?
The main experiment, the idea is, can we work and produce beautiful new technologies and companies in the world and have fun and enjoy ourselves and have personal growth and deep connection and community while we do it? Instead of working in isolation, can we work together and create new ways of working?
So what do you feel like is happening right now in tech, in the AI world, that is impacting humanity?
I think we're learning that our human intelligence can be co-created in AI, and I think it's forcing us to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be human when something can outthink us? And how do we learn to work with the intelligence of the body and the intuition? And how do we bring all parts of ourselves to our work? And I think AI is going to force us to really spend more time with each other, co-creating in new ways.
So Nathaniel and I recorded a great episode together where we went through his whole journey about like starting from the early days to traveling to South Africa and then moving back to the US and creating this, coming out of San Francisco. Do check out our episode and learn more about the whole history. It's like, what is the time? 7:50 a.m.?
Yeah.
And where are we right now?
We're at Spirit Camp.
But where are we really?
So we're in Mendocino, about 3 hours north of San Francisco, and we're just about a mile in from the gorgeous ocean that's just right there.
Wow. And help me understand this philosophy where I always see you saying like, okay, take a deep breath.
Yeah, should we try it right now? Take a deep breath.
Yes.
Let it out. All the way to the bottom and hold down. And then breathe back in.
It's like, what is the time? 7:50 a.m.?
Yeah.
And where are we right now?
We're at Spirit Camp.
But where are we really?
So we're in Mendocino, about 3 hours north of San Francisco, and we're just about a mile in from the gorgeous ocean that's just right there.
Wow. And help me understand this philosophy where I always see you saying like, okay, take a deep breath.
Yeah, should we try it right now? Take a deep breath.
Yes.
Let it out. All the way to the bottom and hold down. And then breathe back in. And stabilize. How do you feel right now?
I feel so much more calm.
Yeah? Where do you feel that in your body?
I feel like there was like some anxiety which has like really gone away.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the breath is so good at helping us regulate. I personally am terrible at that. My nervous system gets really excited all of the time. And I actually worked with a Vedic astrologer who was like, meditation's not going to work good for you, but breath work's going to work really, really great. So I started to go into breath work, and it like changed the game for me. And so now a lot of what I do is try to remind myself to breathe. I'll even be on a meeting, right? And I'll feel myself starting to get tense, and you have tense conversations. You're running out of money. We got to hire someone new. It's not working. You know, like, and all the energy starts to go up.
Everything's going on. Yeah.
And so just constantly asking the team to like deep breath in and release it.
It's kind of crazy, like how this one deep breath actually just changes the tone of any place. Like I was looking at like sometimes when we were at this retreat, a lot of times like there were people like who are anxious or like there was a lot of energy in the room, and you just say like, hey, take a deep breath, and it changes everything.
Changes everything. And you know, especially in meetings at work, they're changing topics all the time. You need to be able to reset and go into the next topic without the past topic carrying its energy, right? You're talking about something big and scary, and then you try to come up with new ideas for a new project. You don't want to bring that big, scary energy into the next topic. And so whether it's in your relationships in life or in a meeting, like breathing is one of the best ways you can just reset and bring in a fresh new perspective or calm to the next thing.
Very cool. So I'm here today with my friend Nathaniel. As you could see, we started this session with a deep breathing exercise. Deep breathing is very important, as Nathaniel said. So, like, there is a quick story about how we met. So I was like at Wisdom 2.0 conference, and we were like dancing. And tell us more about it.
Yeah, so we went to the Wisdom 2.0 conference,
Uh-huh.
and we went to this after party, or we both went individually,
Yes.
and music was on, and I just saw Atal, and I didn't know your name at the time, just dancing, inviting everyone into dancing, and I love dance. Dance is such a beautiful way to get people to connect.
Yeah.
And usually I'm the one on the dance floor connecting everyone, and I saw you, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's better at dancing than I am.
That's not
and is
true,
bringing
but
everyone in.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I was like, I need to meet him. So I was passing you and I was like, hey, I love your energy. Can we become Instagram friends? And then, like, I don't know, 6 months later, I was like, hey, come to Spirit Camp.
It's kind of
hang out.
crazy, but I mean, I never thought this is going to happen where you would invite me or something like this going to turn out. So, first of all, I'm very grateful to this opportunity. I mean, who goes to a party and dances their heart out to realize, like, oh, wow, I'm going to get into this very special community that you're building here at Spirit Camp? And I'm like, well, this is very interesting. And, first time I brought my brother also here because he was also very much interested in learning something new because he works in tech. So, it's like, different way of living. So when I met you for the first time there, I was like, okay, this is great connection. But when I came here, I was myself very shocked to see what you have created here. So I think what I want to touch more is like, what's like the story? Like, tell me about your early days. Like what like everyone has gone through like something in life which has became their source of purpose. Like what happened in your childhood? How was that?
I grew up super religious, and it was hard.
And when you say religious, like
Mormon, so super conservative Mormon. And I felt energy in my system all the time that, religion felt very alive in my body. But I also then started to realize that I was attracted to men, and there was a huge conflict in my system between my religious ideology and my community, and feeling very innately that I was gay, but not knowing what to do with that.
So in Mormons, like it's not allowed to like what is the how conservative is it? Like it's not just like felt like you are a part of the community. How does that work?
Yeah, so homosexuality is considered a sin in Mormonism, and so like many things in religions, we're asked to like put away that part of yourself, suppress that part of yourself, and act in a certain very narrow way. And my whole body and system was like, I need more room to be myself. And so after college, I decided to move to New York City because I didn't want to embarrass my family. I cared so much about my family, but I didn't want to embarrass them. I didn't want to shame them. So I thought if I go to the other side of the country from California to New York, then I can come out of the closet and be free to be myself without shaming my family, because that was very important to me.
Very cool. So like now help me understand, like, there must be a phase in your life where you were like, yes, you don't want your family to be ashamed, but at the same time, like, were you the first one in your family who came out?
Yeah, and you're hitting on a good point. Like, I really thought, oh my gosh, this is my fault. I made myself gay. This is wrong. And then there was a moment when I was like 19 where my brother came out to me and he said that he was gay.
Oh, how old were you at that time?
I was like maybe 19.
So you were 19 and your brother was
17.
17. So he was 2 years younger, and like when
2
he
years
saw
younger. Yeah.
when he was like seeing this in his own body, and he was like he looked up to you as an inspiration because he was like, my brother is open and not worried about the embarrassment. And when you were
Well, I was closeted at the time.
Oh,
So he came out to me and he's like crying, telling me that he's gay, and he's like shaking because he's so scared.
yeah.
And at that moment, I remember thinking, he's not going to hell. I thought I was going to hell, but I was like, God's not going to condemn my brother to hell.
Yeah.
And I realized that if I condemned my brother to hell, or myself to hell, I was literally condemning my brother to hell. And so it was this whole psychological expansion of like, why would I want my brother? I knew my brother wasn't going to hell, so I wasn't going to hell. So it just psychologically started to unlock so many things for me.
But it's like a lot of courage, and you were the first one in the family to actually had the courage to actually go against the norms of the society or the religion that you were practicing at that time. But like, how did your family turn into like your other brothers and sisters and your parents?
Yeah, and it was difficult for the family, right? But it was a constant conversation, constant growth around a very hard topic. But we learned, how can you disagree and still maintain connection? Over time, my next brother came out as gay. Both sisters identify as bi. So of all 5 kids, we all came out as some shade of queer. And my family, my parents loved us so much that they learned to embrace it instead of suppress us.
Then what happened to like in the religion? Like, are they still like Mormons and like?
We've all left the Mormon church. We've all decided that we wanted a more expansive life that allowed us to have more richness. And so I'm really proud of everyone for how they've done that.
Very cool. I mean, I love that your family was able to like more of stand up for themselves that, hey, this framework that you have as a religion is not fitting our philosophy or like our family. But religions offer a lot of community too. Like the church offers a community to the people who are nearby. And I mean, leaving that part of the community and like, how was that transition for your parents and you?
That was the hardest part. Is leaving everything that you know, everyone that you've grown up with, not knowing how to fit into that. But I do think many of us Mormons that are leaving are learning to create community wherever we go. And so I went to New York. I became a vegetarian gay kid. I would make all these potlucks and bring all these friends together around being vegetarian. I wanted vegetarian to like look cool so we could save the planet, and so everywhere I would go, I would try to find people and bring them together because there's something so special when people of diverse minds and backgrounds come together.
So you so in a way, maybe like the church kind of trained you to how to be in how to build community on your own line, and like this whole ecosystem of like, hey, I have courage and I want to stand up for this. First, you stood up for your brother and family. And you started creating communities around it, and you got a lot of allies like men, women, everyone coming together, and we were able to create this ecosystem in New York. Then, did you work in tech?
Yeah, so I moved to New York City in 2008, and the stock market was crashing, and I was working for this big public relations agency, like a big famous. I didn't even mean to get a job for them, and I did. Yeah. And I watched half the office get laid off, but I was the intern that knew how to tweet. And no one knew what Twitter was in 2008, right? Wow. I was coming on a Facebook or coming on a college and had a Facebook. And so I was the kid that started to teach everyone in the office how to use Facebook, how to use Twitter, and how to use it as a marketing modality. And so that really started my trajectory. Like at age 23, 24, I was in meetings with top executives teaching them how to use social media because no one in the older generation hadn't been there. Yeah. So you were able to keep your job as an intern. I mean, interns are not paid very high either. So. No, I was actually even able to like skyrocket my career. Every year I would move to a different agency because there were so few of us working in social media. Agencies would call me up like, can you come here? Can you come here? And so I had a career I didn't even plan on having, creating social media programs for big corporations.
Very cool. So it's like at that time, the niche was to know how to know Twitter. Like it was a great leverage. Knowing
Huge.
how, I mean, I still believe like, writing is still one of the most powerful skill. Like if someone knows how to write well, it goes a long way in their career. But like, just like knowing that, okay, knowing these insights as a young kid about how to use social media was the skill that the world needed, and you were like paid and you were able to maintain your job for this long.
And no one knew what they were doing. So we were all just experimenting. I remember when you used to make Facebook pages and you'd have to HTML code. Yeah. I would design visuals in PowerPoint, screenshot them, then HTML code them into Facebook pages back in the day. Wow. But everything was an experiment. And a lot of it was shitty and failed, but you just kept going.
Very cool. So what happened like after that in your life? Like after 2008, you continued growing in top executive roles and like continued growing in like your tech career. Then what happened?
My boyfriend at the time moved to Mozambique for his job, and I thought I was just going to go follow him. So I went to Southern Africa.
So the love took you to West.
Love took me. Love takes me lots of places.
Yes, love took you to Africa.
Yeah, love took me to Africa. Yes, I was living in Mozambique, and they needed help with communications and technology. It was an area that they didn't have a lot of infrastructure within the programs, and so I then got a job working in HIV communication for the country of Mozambique.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So help me understand, like HIV communication.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very kind of like
very niche.
Very niche.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, you were able to use a lot of your leverage and skills and your whole self into it. So what was really into it?
Well, I think a lot of it was my background in communications. It's very multidiscipline, right? Like in any discipline, if you're really good at it, you can take it to anything. And I had done a lot of work in the healthcare space. So they needed help reframing how people thought of HIV and AIDS. People thought that AIDS meant HIV and this were the same thing. So if you got HIV, you got AIDS and you died. And now with treatment, if you have HIV, it doesn't have to become AIDS. So the question became, how do we create national campaigns, right, across all the different dialects and languages to help rebrand HIV? And I actually, the same week that I started the job, I found out I was HIV positive. And so that was a huge part in me using my own status in HIV positive and navigating that to create national campaigns and find other people in the country that were HIV positive and create like community around that so that we could come out.
So was this like a big problem at that time in West Africa, which was like spreading very quickly? Like how was the scenario at that time?
Yeah, it was very, very prevalent. Up to 10% of the population in Mozambique had HIV. And the irony is that people didn't have to be dying anymore if they took the treatment. But people were so scared to get tested, then they wouldn't get on the treatment. So the whole campaign was, don't be scared to know you have HIV. If you know you can get treatment, you can stay alive.
Because I mean, kind of like, it's from my early childhood, I just remember that, there was like this whole fear, like, okay, stay away from HIV, like, you will die, or they will give you something and it might stick around you for life. So there was all this fear in the society about it. So in a way you are like, okay, I got to create like a better narrative around it, which is like, hey, there is a treatment of this. So people who have it, they can get treated. And that just like improves the overall quality of life in the society.
Yeah. And story is everything. So the stories we have about ourselves, the stories we hold as a collective, they shape our psyche.
Yeah.
And so if we want to reshape our psyche, we have to reshape our story. I mean, something you love.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. Like, just I'm like thinking about like, when there is fear in the society, like everyone is in fear about HIV and like the whole society is like falling apart in a way where people are not connecting with each other just because of the fear of HIV. And then this is the narrative in the world that, hey, stay away from HIV people. And I mean, that just breaks the society in so many ways. And then you come
and it actually spreads HIV. And this is a perfect example. If you're scared to know you're HIV positive and you don't get tested, then you go around and you keep spreading it. And everyone's like, oh, I don't have HIV, but they're spreading it because they don't know. If you know you're HIV positive because you were brave enough to get a test and you're on treatment, you can't pass HIV anymore. So I can't pass HIV. There's not enough HIV in my semen. So when I have sex, I can't pass it. So it's a perfect example. If someone is so scared that they do not get tested, they will keep passing HIV. If you're brave enough to accept that you might have HIV and you get tested and you go on treatment, then you break the transmission chain. So the more we include people with HIV in our life and help everyone get tested, the safer we all become. It's very ironic.
Yeah, it's like very hard to understand as an individual concept, but I mean, once you create like this narrative and information about it, it helps a lot of people understand what is really happening. Now, like, so you went to West Africa?
It was Mozambique, so Southern Africa, just above South Africa or next to South Africa.
So you went to South Africa. What did you see there? Like, I mean, Africa is a poor country overall. I mean, what did you find very
it was on the Human Development Index. It has a lot of struggles, but it also so much warmth and open-heartedness, so much desire to just live and be alive. And I think I really got to see as an American that you don't have to have a lot to be happy. It really reframed my idea of happiness. I was also so impressed with how accepted and loved I was. And one thing that was really powerful was getting to see that when people come together in really powerful ways, and like literally anything is possible.
So now you are there, you find these amazing people who are like taking care of you and, supporting you. How did you feel like when they were taking care of you? Because I mean, you were still an American and you live a very different quality of life, and they are like a very different quality of life. You found very good truth about the world, which is like about happiness. Like you don't need much, but like, how did you feel like, them working for you and like taking care of you?
Yeah, I had a housekeeper, and that was very new for me. I was not accustomed to having someone take care of everything in my home.
Yeah.
And I felt a lot of that almost like stress in my system, like, oh my gosh, I have so much, this person has so little, they're taking care of me. And a lot of my questions around, is this exploitive? What is our relationship? How can I take care of them in the way that they're taking care of me? So it was a very interesting dynamic too, to have Herminia, who became like a mother to me and took care of me every day in every way, and with such joy and such love. It was a very new experience for me.
And how long did you stay there?
I was in Mozambique for almost 5 years.
5 years. And how's that relationship now like with
we're still in touch.
Wow.
So it's been a bond that has been created over time, and I found ways to compensate and take care of her that allowed her to do new things with her life. And so it's been really rewarding to go back. I've visited now twice and be able to see her and see the life she's living in Mozambique.
So how is her life now? And how did you support that life?
I don't usually talk about this a lot, but I recognized that I was already paying her above market value. And I was worried that if I just paid her more, but then left the country, her income would drastically go down. So I asked myself, like, what is something I could do for her that would create safety and protection forever? And I realized that almost all of her money that I was paying her was going to rent. So I was like, well, what if we built a house, right? And so this was a crazy idea, but I helped her buy like a little piece of land. And then I designed in PowerPoint what the house would look like, and her and I would consult on how the windows would open and where the floor plan would be. And then we found a local contractor who spoke Portuguese and English, who would do all the translation. And then I would drive out into, the country every weekend to see how the house was being built. And so her and I built this house for her together, knowing that for me, it was a relatively small expense, but for her, she would have the safety of a home for the rest of her life. Wow. And now she has I would say the cutest house in the Viceroy.
Wow. This is such an inspiring story. I think the reason I asked you this because I was very touched when we were talking about this. And this came to me. I was like, wow, you really cared. And in such a way, you just like uplifted the quality of life of someone out there. So, I mean, I have seen like a lot of people think of like, hey, there is this exploitation when someone is going and taking care. But in the other way to look at it is like you improve the quality of life for her. And you offered her such great opportunity to be able to live a better life. And if you are still in touch, as you're saying, like you're still in touch, so you can like even you are still there to create more opportunities. But different people, I think, choose different ways to live, and some people do not want to come to the United States of America, and I think that's completely okay, right? Sometimes we think like, hey, they should come to United States, and why are they not like seeking all bigger opportunities that are here? But like they're like happy in their own life and their own cocoon, and they have a good life. And I think you created so much value in that little system that she has. So that by itself is a great value.
Yeah, I almost didn't come back. I loved, honestly, there's something beautiful in other countries where you can build whatever you want, build a house how you want, build a company how you want. There's a lot of freedom.
Yeah, there's a lot of
freedom. And I think sometimes we as Americans are like, oh, we're the most free. Yeah. No, we're not. You can go many places in the world and they have a lot more everyday freedom to build and actualize how they want. It was kind of hard coming back to the US to all the regulations, to all the systems. Everything is expensive. Everything has to be done in a certain way. So I sometimes miss the vibrancy that I felt in Mozambique to make my dreams however I wanted in any moment.
Very cool. So now, which year was this when you left?
2017-ish.
2017-ish. And I mean, now tell me like what happened since then, like, the early days of probably like maybe COVID, or like you came back for a tech job?
Yeah, I came back and I started consulting for my old agencies. And I just kind of had an intuition that I wanted to work remote and work mobilely. And this was before COVID, those of us that were working mobile from anywhere, we were kind of stigmatized. Like, oh, why aren't you in the office? Or we need you here. But some of us were like, well, I'm talented enough that you're just going to have to hire me wherever I am. Yes. And so it kind of forced my teams in New York to have to learn to file share and work in the cloud, which is still something
you uplifted this company so much.
So, I think so.
Yeah. You got them on like tech infrastructure way before
I was
anyone else.
This is how you share a link so we can work on the file together.
I think the hardest thing which I've seen about remote working is like finding those people who are going to actually have good work ethic while working remote. So I mean, if someone can master that, which you did at that time, super early and earlier before anyone else, like that's just by itself such a great quality or skill to have.
And I think it also means you have to have the emotional desire to connect through the screen. It's very easy when you're virtual to be like, oof, I don't like what's going on. I'm just going to pretend it's not happening, and I'm just going to smile on the screen. And then when I get off, I'm going to feel awful. So the question is, even as we're working virtually, how do we show up authentically and tell our coworkers how we're feeling about things and bring the emotional connection through the screen? And that's the big divider. Those of us that know how to bring the hard conversations, no matter if we're virtual or not, versus those that are sitting back and pretending things are okay when they're not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we are touching on a very solid point here. Like, the whole world right now is very much remote. And all these tech workers are like around the world, kind of like taking care of different things. Now, I feel like the culture in tech is to shut down your screen. Like, when you're like talking even on a video, you do not want to show your camera. Now, if someone is like having one meeting a day or two meeting a day, they're like literally in their house for like 8 hours working while they're having like 15 minutes of FaceTime, which they choose to be off camera. Like, how do you think we can improve this?
Well, we're kind of moving into the Spirit Camp story, which is I found that if you're working virtually at home, it gets very claustrophobic. So during COVID, Julian and I met dancing in a park.
Yes.
Right?
And wow.
Yeah. We were ecstatic dancing. And I saw him, we locked eyes, and we just danced for like 5 hours without even like saying a word. Right? Dance is very important to me.
Yes.
And that night I found out that he was a meditation teacher who was studying Vastu architecture, who wanted a land project. And I was just like, ding, 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 this is my husband. I just knew, because I was looking for someone that wanted to like live in nature. So 7 weeks later, we start driving around looking for properties to buy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That happened really quick. Like you
So
just
fast.
met and like in 5 weeks you were like, okay, let's get together, let's see a land. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think even like women go that, like this is just like not how
it was very fast.
Yeah.
Very fast. But we felt very inspired. Like there was just something inside that felt right, and we followed that.
Just like very much of an intuition, follow the path of intuition.
Oh yeah, and it can take you crazy places, and you get to those places and you're like, "Whoa, am I supposed to be doing this?" And you just have to like really sit and breathe, and move yourself through.
Yeah. So now tell me, like, so 5 weeks later, you were checking out the land, driving around.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
We found this place, which was an old Christian youth camp.
Old Christian youth camp. Oh, so is this the Mormon side coming back?
The Mormon side is coming fully back. And so we saw this place, and we weren't really looking for a retreat center, but we knew we wanted to be in nature. It had all these buildings. It had this beautiful space that we see here. And what really started to become more clear is now with virtual work, we could work from anywhere. And so Julian and I was like, okay, what if we lived up here 3 hours from San Francisco in this beautiful place? And what if we created a community where people could come, work, play, heal, do personal growth, and weave it all together from all walks of life? And that's very much what we've created.
So you were in San Francisco at that time. So you met in the park in San Francisco? Is it the Golden Gate Park?
Golden Bay Park.
Golden Gate Park. Yeah. Wow, very cool. So you guys met and you were like, okay, let's get this land together.
Yeah.
Did you have so much cash? Like, it looks like you were working in tech.
Well, Julian had an intuition to sell his apartment in New York City.
I see.
And it was crazy at the time. This is before COVID. And everyone's like, why are you selling it now? The market's only going to go up. And he had a feeling like, I need to sell. And he didn't know why. But as a meditation teacher, he's very attuned to his system. So he sold it, and he had the cash sitting in the bank account, right? So he had the cash for the down payment because it takes a lot of money.
Yes.
And I happened to just get offered a new job in biotech. And so I had the salary coming in every month to then pay.
And you were like, let's lock in.
And so to apart, we could not have done this. And then coming together, it was like, this seems crazy, but let's try it.
So what was the problem you were facing in San Francisco when you were living where you were like, guys, like there is something missing here. Like what is like the main thing?
Separation and isolation.
Separation and isolation during COVID or beyond COVID too?
Beyond COVID, especially during COVID. But everyone is like, my best friend is here. I'm here. My best friend's over there. You're driving an hour to see everyone. Everyone's so far away. The only places to meet up are usually parks or places to go drinking with alcohol. And so I think my system was like, well, how do we all live together and work together and play together? Like my whole system I saw this in Mozambique. I had this beautiful home paid for by my contract when I was working in Mozambique. And I decided to move friends in from all over the world to help me with projects. So they would all be in a different bedroom. We'd be working on projects together. We'd be having fun together. And I saw when you have a space where everyone lives together and works together, it can be really, really special. And it can be very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, living with friends.
It's like relationships
Oh
at
my
different
gosh.
level. Yeah.
Yeah, all your shit comes up, right? All the relational dynamics. But can you work with that?
Yes.
And so I think it's very powerful when you can learn to spend a lot of time.
So
Work is one of
working
these
through
things.
relationships relationships are very hard. Everything comes down to relationship. Like the whole concept of marriage is like you can maintain relationship with one person, and here you are trying to build a community where you are like, let's work through other relationships too. And you are also teaching people how to build those relationships, because you just like keep talking about like, hey, let's just say that we have good intention, everyone here, create a space for that and allow those emotions and relationships to flow.
Yeah. Because what happens is two people are interacting and something uncomfortable happens. We have many choices, but we can either talk about it and figure out how to work through it, or many times we as humans go, oof, I don't like you. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to be around you. And we've created like the discard culture, even at work. An employee is not working. Oh, just fire and get rid of them, right? Someone does something bad in society. Oh, put them in prison, right? And the question now becomes is like, how do we hold that relational field and say, could we work through this together? Could you be a more productive coworker if we address some of the underlying issues or put you in the right position, right? And so I think that's a lot of the things in this new culture that is birthing is like, how do we hold each other together and work through it together instead of creating so much separation?
So you just believe that there is a way to be able to include everyone in the society in a way, because the way you are like describing this philosophy is like, if someone is like not, you definitely give them warnings and you want to take them, but it's like very much a different model of togetherness that, hey, let's take you along with me on this journey if you want to be, but I don't want to feel like I want to leave you behind, something like that.
Absolutely. And it's hard. I'm not perfect at it.
Yes.
There are people that I have fired. There are friends that I have lost communication with or have not invited at certain times. But I'm doing some deep work with my therapist right now about how do I hold more space for the discomfort so that I can work through things with individuals instead of push them away. So it's a continual process. We had friends that lived here in the first year, and we thought it was a great idea. We're all going to live together. And it went sideways. We didn't have clear agreements. We didn't have clear exchanges. We didn't have a model for sitting together when difficult things happened. And so inevitably, after a year, we were like, this isn't working, and we separated. Now I'm in deep communication with that friend still. He's coming back actually tonight and going to facilitate in this room because we've been doing the work to come back into friendship. But I think it's just so important. That dance we do to coming back is one of the most important dances we do in life.
Very nice. So you were saying like, even if like sometimes the time period for separating that relationship can be long, even years, but and there might be a closure there, and that might be maybe not the best closure. But given we are all walking towards death in some form or the other at some point.
Yeah, we're all walking towards death. Absolutely.
So you are like, let's close this even in a better place when we closed it the last time 4 years ago, let's say, right? Or like a few years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just believe that, okay, everything should be the best closer possible.
Basically. Also, when you're always pushing people away, your world gets very small because you're only comfortable with people that are just like you. The more you can hold discomfort and be with people that are not like you and be with people that you disagree with, then your world gets really, really big. I can now work with many more personality types, people that are very different from me. And so I have so many more opportunities the more that I can hold connection.
Very cool. So now help me understand this model. You were born and brought up in like capitalist economy in America, and then you probably saw something different when you went to Africa, and you saw like a lot of happiness and love there. And here it's a different model. And what you are creating here is also kind of a little different than a capitalist model too. What do you think about like this model that you are creating, and how did you contrast it with like capitalism that you have seen?
Well, we're still trying to figure out what the model is, because right now this place is very much Julian and I own it. I have a tech company that pays me very well, that's paying the bills for this place. Like this place is not self-sustaining.
Yeah.
And we've got to move to a new place because it's when you own a company all by yourself and you're growing something, it is so stressful.
Yeah.
You feel very alone. Even when you have all these coworkers or friends coming to visit you, you still feel like, oh my God, I'm providing everything for everyone. This is a lot of stress.
Yes.
And so I'm sitting with right now, like, how do we create a better model for camp? And so we're exploring lots of new ideas where friends could be part of a subscription model, co-working in this space, more activities that connect the incredible energy of the tech world and the entrepreneurs of the Bay Area to this space. So to be fully honest, we haven't figured out the new model, but I can feel it coming, and we're trying to figure out with our community what that looks like.
Got it. So in this, if I understand, see, the way I look at the world is like, there are like people who are leaders who kind of like are brave, and you like, in a way you have like shown those early signs, because when you came out, you were like a leader to your brother. You were a leader to your family in a way, like when you got out of the church infrastructure, and then you were a leader like, hey, let's build a land. And you were a leader when you went to leader in love. Leader in love who went to Africa, and then you came back here and you are like, I want to build this land, and you just like, now you are leading this and you are like taking care of the bills. So there are leaders and people who follow, and so in a way, when we talk about like a different model, we kind of talk about like, how can everyone be a leader?
Yes.
And take care of their own ownership, and they have enough incentive for life.
Yeah.
Where they are like, yes, this progresses me in my life, and this gives me what I'm looking for in a long run. Because if they don't have incentives aligned, I think this is from Charlie Munger. He's like, tell me the incentives, and I will tell you where the future is going. Right? And if the incentives are not aligned, then I mean, some people would be like, oh, no, it's not working out long term. It was a great short term project and all. So how do you look at that?
You were talking about leadership and me being a leader. And you asked the question, what was my approach to leadership and authority?
Yeah. So as you were sharing like, okay, your journey, and you started with like, okay, you were there for your brother at the start, and then you were like, okay, as a leader you went to West Africa, and sorry, not West Africa, South Africa, and then that was a leader in love, and going from America to Africa is like by itself a very hard journey. But then you were like, I want to do something more, and this spirit camp kind of came out. Now you're trying to create a very different model here, which is like different from a little bit of capitalism. You're trying to be like, okay, let's take everyone together. And capitalism does not take everyone together. So, this is like more of an experiment. So what are your thoughts about this experiment?
Yeah, I do. Experiment is a really good word. I think it's a big experiment that we're trying to do right now, right? And I think the hypothesis is, can people share space together in a new way and be more joyous and more playful and more productive, right? I love what I do in the world for tech. I love working. I'm addicted to working. But instead of working from that place of, oh my God, this is so stressful, I have to meet all these deadlines, can I work from a place of, this is enjoyable, this is nourishing, I'm working with my best friends, we're having fun working. And so a big question here for us, play is so important. Everything we do, whether we're doing personal growth or we're doing virtual work remote weeks, how do we play? How do we dance? How do we move in our body? How do we bring in that energetic so that we're experiencing joy even when we're doing the work?
Got it. So, I think when I'm like learning about the whole AI movement right now in the world, AI, what it's doing is like a lot of people are scared about losing their jobs in one form. And there is no doubt the jobs of the future are going to be different than the jobs of the past. And capitalism is just cutthroat. Like, hey, you perform, and whoever performs takes the job. Now, what is happening, I'm seeing this in technologies. Like, there was this news that S&P 500 would need only like 10% of the employees it actually needed, because of how AI can do a lot of the work. And, when I remember at Wisdom 2.0, you were also there when Sam Altman gave a talk about it. And he's also like, hey, how fast this thing is moving. Now, the whole idea is like, how do we survive as a civilization where it has minimum damage on the lives of people who are in it? So what are your thoughts about like, how do we ensure that people are not left behind? Because I mean, everyone cares about this cause.
These are big questions. on the Key 13 studio side, which is my tech company with Yamal, we are thinking about different kinds of platforms that look at a way of sharing risk and reward together. So I do think we need new technologies for how we
share how we share value.
Exactly. Because, we like to think of the VCs as the bad guy, but they're putting all the risk in. So they're basically saying, hey, if I'm taking such a huge risk, I also want a big piece back. The question is how could we all share risk and reward and the value together? And I think with technology, we have new ways than traditional ways. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation we could talk about. But I do think one of the things we can do with AI is build much faster so we can build different types of platforms for working together, for value exchange. Like even like what you do, I think I've been so enthralled with how you're working with people in India and how that's created a very incredible business model. The platforms are connecting us and value exchange in whole new ways. And I think we're going to see new ways of that we've never seen before.
Got it. And what are the experiments that are on your mind that you feel like that could be disrupting the world that we have right now that you are trying to run at Spirit Camp?
Well, first, too, I think as you were talking about, everyone's talking about AI is going to take our jobs. We've created something that can outthink us. It thinks better than I think. It thinks faster and types faster words, better language than I do. I think one of the things we're doing at camp is how do you get people to tune in to all of the intelligence in the body? The mind is only one form of intelligence. You have a whole nervous system, right, that has intelligence. We're now learning more and more that there's a whole ecosystem in your gut biome that has intelligence. We're learning that the body has intuition. I think AI is going to force us to realize we are not our minds because AI is a mirroring of our own mind. And so I really think the opportunity is if AI can do what our mind does, what can the body do that AI cannot do? So when I knew to buy camp, or my partner knew to sell his apartment in New York City, right? Or I knew to meet you on the dance floor because you were the only person of that whole conference that I decided to stay connected to. That was my intuition, right? AI could not have looked around that whole room and been like, this is the one person for you.
Yeah.
Right? That was my
So it was able to
intuition.
bring people who just align, because I mean we do align. So in thinking we align, in ways we do things align.
But did we even know that we thinking aligned then?
No.
It was just a feeling of being in each other's presence. And so I think the big invite at Spirit Camp is, yes, the mind is powerful. Let's have workshops. Let's work together. But let's do breath work. Let's go deep into the body and into the intelligence of the body. Let's use our breath to calm our nervous system. Let's dance and move and stretch and see what's alive. There are so many forms of intelligence in the human body that go beyond the mind. And I think AI is going to force us, if we want to be unique, if we want to be creators, if we want to lead AI to new places, we have to be intuitive beings that are fully embodied.
So I mean, what I'm you're sharing some of the experiments that we are going to run in the future after this whole AI is going to take over a lot of things. Is how do we tap into the untapped potential of the body?
Yeah.
So after the potential of the mind is creation of AI.
Yeah.
But then the potential of the body is how we will tap into the other things in ourselves as human beings, and then maybe we go to the soul or what.
But one of my favorite things is, so I have a virtual team and we're all working virtually. It's powerful. But there's something about coming together once, twice, 3 times a year and being together, eating food together, playing together, doing breath work together. And so I think the new model of the world is, yes, we'll be virtual and then we'll come together a few times a year. When I'm working with my founders on a project, we might be in here scribbling our ideas and we kind of get stuck. Then we go on a walk in the forest and we start doing activities and a new idea comes. New ideas come when you're not trying to solve the problem. And I think we have to create more containers for exploration and for the intuition to come online with each other, right? Some of my best ideas happen when I'm cooking a meal for my friends.
Yeah.
And
you're creating the space for co-creation where other people can, you flow with each other's energy and just see what comes out of it. So you're creating a space where people can share, first of all, their true self. They don't have to hide parts of themselves that they would be oh, I won't be accepted. So you're creating a very acceptance rich society here. And then you are let's co-create as fully accepted beings.
Yeah. I mean, at its core, even think about the retreat we just did this weekend that you were a part of. different people from different walks of life, and we're having these discussions, and people are disagreeing, but in a loving way, right? We had lots of discussion, and not everyone agreed with each other. In that disagreement, new ideas come. In that disagreement, we actually create more connection, right? And so the question is, how do we use our diversity of culture, of sexuality, of thought, of background, of politics, of even religions? I want a space where a Republican and a Democrat, a Kamala Harris and a Trump supporter can be together. Like, we've created a world where it's like, oh, you have to think like me to be here. And it's like, well, no, could we all be different and still dance with each other?
Very cool. So now, there is, in this retreat that we did, I saw some parts of like, there were like people who were like going through a lot in their life, and they kind of released all that emotion. They were holding it for like years. So what were like some of the stories that you have seen while as a part of Spirit Camp, which just changed lives?
So you're speaking to breath work, which is really good at activating the nervous system, right? So the nervous system is the system runs through the body. And as we're growing up, the nervous system goes, oh, cup, hot, don't touch, bad, right? But then it learns these patterns in this way of working. Breath work allows you to breathe into the old patterns and to activate and release them. So someone might be in breath work, and all of a sudden a trauma from the past is activating in the body, is what you're talking about, right? So you might yell it out, you might cry it out, you might scream it out. We all have stories and emotions that are stuck in the body that are controlling how we act and making our world very rigid and small. So breath work is an opportunity to breathe and release that.
So in a way, holding on to that trauma for a long period of time, it kind of creates a small world around you, or it just like, it's like there is a potential in you, which is like kind of like, as of now, you are not able to even bring it out because you are in fear, or how does trauma?
Yeah, so I'm a gay man. I have a lot of trauma about how I was treated really bad by some straight men. So now when I'm walking in the world, I'm like, oh, I don't like to be around straight men because they trigger me. I don't feel safe. And so my world becomes small. If you can't be around straight men, where can you go? Not very many places.
You're like, more of like dealing with like, okay, more like 45% is whatever the number is.
Yeah,
like,
they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere. You're
they're
like,
everywhere.
Okay, this just takes away
And
everything.
I used to be so angry, like, oh, straight man, you're the problem. By doing breath work, I was able to go deep into those stories and be like, oh, I got teased when I was 7 by this guy, or I got things thrown at me from this truck when I was in college. And I was able to let go of the emotion that got stuck in the body. So now I can meet straight men with ease and be like, oh, you don't trigger me anymore. Not only that, I'm curious, like, what's happening in your life? And so we're creating retreats, for example, for men, and we're experimenting. Can we bring straight men and queer men together and heal the divides that have been created? People need places to come together with the things that actually trigger them and make them uncomfortable, and they need a way to dance with it. And so that's what the experiment is right now. How do we bring people together that usually don't come together and get them moving and dancing, literally dancing, and metaphorically dancing together?
I'm going to ask you a very hard question now.
Okay.
And this is like on the top of my mind, and it's all over Twitter too. So, like, by the way, in my college, I started a queer support group. So, I mean,
you started a queer support group?
Yeah. It's like called as LGBTQ. It's called as Amber. And I was like because I think the story it happened is like, I was the college president, and one of the kid from his undergrad days was like suicidal. And he came to me, and he went to the counseling center, and he was not getting help. And I was like, I want to be there for this kid. And when I was there and with him in the counseling center, he said, someone in my hostel knows that he is gay. And because of that, he always have this fear that this person is going to leak this information into the whole college, and everyone would know that he's gay, and he would not be able to live a good life, and everyone will tease him. And he also felt like someone is like trying to like tap into him and like trying to like observe him because he's gay. So when I heard his story and he was suicidal, I was like, why should he be worried about this? And we were like, okay, let's make this a norm that it's okay. So when everyone knows that this group is like started by someone in authority like me as the college president, and like, I'm always there, and there are allies, and you just create the whole vibe in a way that you can't differentiate who's queer and who's men and who's women. And I'm like, no one can figure it out now, So this guy doesn't have to worry about this. So that's like how my kind of like how I got involved into understanding this. Now my question is like, there is the other side of this, which is a lot of people are talking about like, hey, there are all these kids who are not sure about their, let's say, sexuality. And I mean, maybe I don't have a lot of deep understanding, but like sometimes people go through operations which are irreversible, and they're going through it at a very early stage, way before they know it. And then they are like having regrets later in their life that this was not the right thing for me. Now, there's like both sides of the story, that you want to provide a platform for someone who knows it, but human mind is like very kind of like, it goes by its own hallucinations over a period of time sometimes. So like, what are your thoughts about like what should be the path as a society, as a gay man, where you want people who are gay to come out as gay? At the same time, you don't want someone to go through regrets later where they're like, okay, this, I mean, I had too much I didn't know much about myself and I did this and now it's irreversible.
Yeah. So two things. First, I want to respond to thank you for the work you did in college for that boy. I almost committed suicide in college because I thought that I could not be loved and accepted. And I can't tell you, when straight allies, when someone that is in the norm, that is accepted, accepts someone that is not accepted, is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. So first, I want to honor that. I think it's very easy for you to just be happy all the time, but that's big. Thank you. Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
I think you're bumping up against, I get this question a lot. People want to talk about this a lot. I like to deconstruct this a little bit, which is regret is a part of life. I've done so many things that I regretted. I've done things my parents said, don't do that, you'll regret it. But I needed to do it for me, to feel for me. I don't think we should be policing the world based on, oh, you're going to regret it. I think we all change. I want a world where change is allowed, where I'm allowed to be this version of myself, and in 3 years I'm allowed to be this version of myself. I want this for everyone. I see a very myopic view of the world, where, oh, you're this version of you, and I need you to stay that version forever. When you start doing personal growth, when you start moving with the universe, you start to change a lot. I say this because I think we need to be supportive of everyone in their own journey and give them the love that they need, no matter what they're doing, no matter how they think they need to do it. Is that person any less valuable of our love and our acceptance in our culture because they changed into another sex? Are they any less lovable because they decided to change back? I wish we could hold people through change, and so we could all change more rapidly and in connection and with love. Does that answer? And you can debate me on this.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love this answer. I think, I think there is no doubt. I think all of us are about like acceptance of everyone the way they want it to be in that phase of life. So even like if I think from a perspective of like a 13-year-old kid who is going through these feelings, the job of the parents or the society is like to accept this person in the way they are. Like, like say that, okay, yes, that's completely okay. Go through those feelings. Now, I think the point of debate comes in is about at what time does it go into like a permanent thing, which is like if someone goes through surgery or something. I think maybe we should keep these things as separate about sexuality and, just like change of gender. So, I mean, maybe these two things are separate, I guess. How do you look at it?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the individual, it's their body, it's their freedom, actualize in however they want. But I think you're talking about something very important, which is the emotion. I don't think we as a society are very good at holding love around people's difficult emotions. And so how do we hold people with care no matter where they're at? Everything is so individual. We're having so many debates in the US right now about hard things like abortion, gender change operation. We're still debating gay marriage. And all it comes down to is what is really making us uncomfortable? Are we uncomfortable because we don't understand it and we want to stop something? Can we hold place for that discomfort? What are we holding inside of ourselves that we're not allowing? Also, can I add one esoteric layer?
Yes, please.
We're moving into the age of Aquarius. And the Aquarian archetype in astrology is genderless. Now, I'm not saying we're getting rid of all gender for everyone, but I think we're moving into a new age where everyone gets to flow and experiment in all dimensions. And I think it's very, very exciting. I love putting on a dress sometimes. It feels so powerful to put a dress and heels on and be like, oh, wow, this version of a female archetype is really powerful. Right? Have you ever worn a dress or heels?
Maybe like for an event or something like.
What did it feel like?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love self-expression, so I can go along with it. Yeah, I'd like to experiment, so for me, it was like a very unique experience.
And experimentation for me, when you do something in the body with it opens the mind.
Yeah.
And so, like I don't need to be wearing a dress all the time, but sometimes it just brings on a whole new creative energy.
Just like, in a way, yeah, it definitely brings like more of a very different creative energy in you. Now, how there are pillars in life. I think maybe like being a man is like a pillar where you are standing, and now you are like putting on a it's like an identity, right? When you are like putting on a dress of a woman, you're like putting that very different identity, so you're like actually stepping onto your own old identity, and breaking out of your old identity is not easy. You got to have like a stable base in your mind, and when you do those things, like it's very hard.
And everyone around you is being like, well, I knew this version of you. Why did you change your name? Or why are you acting this way now, right? Everyone wants you to stay the way they knew you because that's more comfortable for them. It's uncomfortable when people change, and we have to be like, wait, I have to get to know you again. My mind wants to keep you the same. Like, right? The mind likes patterns that it understands that don't change. The mind does not like change. It doesn't like uncertainty. And so the body gets very uncomfortable. And I think we need to hold a lot more space for the discomfort. Like when we're having these conversations around operation changes, what I notice, people are very uncomfortable. They're angry in their body. They're uncomfortable. I can see them stop breathing. So it's like, can we just breathe? Does it matter if someone changes and then changes back and then changes again? Does that really affect me? What's happening in me that I can learn by just witnessing how someone else changes is affecting me?
I think what is happening in this perspective is like we all want the society to be good and happy and prosperous, but I mean we don't like. I think we all have our version of like what a good society looks like. Like we all have like this is a good society where everyone is there is men and women is like this is the version of society, good society according to me. Like maybe like from a church perspective at some point, or like from a society our perspective we are like okay no you should not be allowed to change gender because that is a better way according to me for the world to be, and that just takes away
according to me for the world to be. That sounds like a god.
That's like
that's not the world I want.
That's actually a lot of taking on responsibility.
A lot of responsibility. That must feel that's a lot of control. That's why Karens are happening, right? Because this archetype of a woman who's following all the rules. So when other people don't follow the rules, she gets really angry. But why is she angry? She's probably really angry that she followed all the rules her whole life and she's unhappy. And so I think the question here isn't like what makes a perfect world. The question is what makes me happy inside? What makes my world perfect for me inside? And I think it's very easy to take our anxiety and project it into the world. Oh, well, if people stop doing that, and if you just did this, I would feel better. And I think we're moving towards a perfect world to me is we all feel our own bodies. We follow our own joy. And we allow ourselves to have our own expression, and we're not so worried about how everyone else is expressing because we are so consumed with the joy and peace of our own being. I'm not there. But in my best days, I am,
That's where we are aiming for, like all of us as human beings.
And that's truly what Spirit Camp is. I noticed that in queer culture, that we became very isolated. Oh, if you're straight, you can't come here, right? Like a lot of my friends would be like, don't invite Atal, he's straight. This is just for the gays. And that world got really small. And so with Spirit Camp, yes, we have lots of queer energy here, but I wanted a place where we have straight men that come here and they go, I don't understand pronouns. And instead of being like, bad, shame on you, you don't use pronouns, I'm going to tell you, you have to use them. I like holding the conversation. What's coming up for you? Why is that uncomfortable? I have people in my retreats that go, I don't like gay people. I'm homophobic. And I get to be like, oh, let's talk about that. What happened to you as a child where your father said that you couldn't express and now you want the whole world to stop expressing? And so Spirit Camp is that place where we come together from all walks of life. And when that trigger happens, when something feels uncomfortable, we hold space around it and we dance with it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think sex and gender are like very small parts of it. Like expression goes on a lot of other limits.
Yeah.
Like able to solve for these two problems by itself is a big problem, being able to create those system or infrastructure for people to have those conversations. But like expression is happening at work, like where people are not able to share their true self.
Absolutely. And then we actually hinder them. When people show up with their emotion and with their intelligence, they have so much more creativity. They have so much more energy. When we tell people you have to act only this way, what happens to the energy system of the body? It gets tired, it gets shut down, it gets sick, it gets bored, right? And we see study after study, the more room you make for people at work and their creativity and their authenticity, the more productive they become.
It's kind of funny, like whenever I say like, okay, when we look at leaders, we always say like, oh, wow, how creative they are. And the whole culture sometimes in the corporation is like how to kill the creativity of everyone who's bringing their ideas. Like it's very strange to me that the people we respect are the creative beings, and what we do to creativity of people who are actually working on that is like we try to kill that.
We have a deep hierarchical structure, and we have this idea that the person at the top is the best. They know everything. They solve everything. Those structures are getting very, very weak. So the question is, how do we create leadership? Like as a leader, my job isn't to have all the right ideas. My job is to hold space so that everyone is coming up with ideas, and then I'm helping move those ideas to something tangible.
Very cool.
Which means I invite my employees constantly, disagree with me. This is my opinion. What's your opinion? Right? But it's a very different way of thinking. We're moving into a very different age and time. And I think AI is going to do that. The person at the top is going to no longer be at the top. AI is going to think better than the leader. So we're going to have to embrace that there's more intelligence around us than in us.
Yes. Like, I mean, if AI can answer all these questions, then we would try to use collective intelligence of the mind. Of the mind, not one mind, because one mind is...
And imagine the collective intelligence of 20 bodies, 20 cultural stories, 20 different perspectives, 20 different expressions.
Bringing it through our DNAs too, like over years. So what are the type of experiments you are looking to run here very soon that, I mean, people would want to learn more about?
Yeah, one thing I'm missing is I want more tech founders and builders in this space with me. I'm a tech founder and builder, and it gets very lonely. So I'm like, where are the other tech builders and founders? I love the hippies. I love all of my meditation friends, but sometimes I'm like, where are the builders? So the experiments we want to run, I want to do more retreats that are like summits.
So you want to bring in like more tech founders to Spirit Camp?
Yeah, I want people with big ideas to come here and talk about their big ideas with other big thinkers. I want us to talk. I want us to play. I want us to breath work. How do we build more community, but creating more interaction? We're going to be experimenting with weeks where anyone can come and rent a cabin and work virtually. And then you work all day on your thing, but in the morning we do yoga together. And then we make a dinner at night. And then we do campfire. Like how do we get out of our houses and into nature? So the experiments really are, how do we stay productive and do the thing we are here to do in the world and be in community and feel nourished and excited to be alive? Because I know what it's like when you're building something. You always think, oh, in 10 years when I have money, then I'll go have fun. And then you get burnt out. You hate your life. You don't want to build the company anymore. And you show up with so much anger. So the question is, how can we build and have an incredible life doing it? And this is why you're an inspiration to me, right? You're like, I'm going to van life and build a company and have fun, love my life and build. And those things should not be at war with each other. We should be able to build beautiful things in the world and have fun doing it.
Very cool. I think I'm just inspired by all that you're creating here, just like bringing so many different type of people through the retreats, through the events. Like it's just the kind of like the energy and the flow of like skills and traits and ages and everything is just so beautiful.
And I met my founders here. And I wouldn't have become deep enough. Trust is everything, right? And so you have a big idea, but who do you birth that idea with? Who's going to be a part of your work family, especially when you're starting something new? Those first few people are everything. So being in an environment where you get to know people on all dimensions and levels. So when you come together to start building, you know them. You know their good side. You know their difficult side. You know how to have honest conversation. So you're creating a family network that has so much power for building because they've shared space and community together. Does that make sense?
Yes, very cool. No, I mean, I think you are able to bring in great people, and then you are like, let's amplify their voice and like co-build together. So I mean, in a way, for a lot of people in tech who are like looking for, let's say, even co-founders and all, this is a great place to connect with them, because you can spend time for a few days and actually get to know each other in like a living environment. So it's like a co-creation space or co-founding space, like, co-birthing space too.
And, we're moving to the world of fractional CFO, fractional, like meaning you find someone very talented, but you only need a part of them. I just found my new fractional CFO because my friend here, who's a farmer and not in tech, had an incredible CFO in tech and introduced us. And I think sometimes in the tech bubble, it's all tech people, all kind of competing, right? Like all trying to do the same thing. It's so nourishing to be around people doing artists and healers and doulas and farmers. And when you bring everyone together, the ecosystem expands, right? And is so much more resilient.
Yeah, very cool. I think this has been a great experience, just like knowing about how you think and what you're thinking about the Spirit Camp. My last question to you is like, how can people support you in this mission that you're creating? Like, how can they help you in your journey of creating something so beautiful?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Because I do think sometimes when you have a space like this, you feel like you're always giving and you're wondering how to receive back. We want to do more experiments. So if any of your listeners are listening and want to try to experiment with us, we're thinking about putting a founder retreat together. So I would just love founders to come here and try building this. We want to do kind of like an AI tech founder summit. We want to do more events in the Bay with you, as you know, where people can experiment. But basically, the best way people can support is come on retreat. Come try the experiment, even if it feels scary, especially if it feels scary. Come anyway. Because I constantly hear people, they go, oh, I saw your content and I wanted to come, but I felt uncomfortable. And I'm like, no, come. Let's try it. Let's experiment together. Like, be courageous enough to come, to drive 3 hours to a place you don't know. Be courageous enough to try something uncomfortable and just see what happens. That's really how you can support us, is be brave enough to come here and be a part of the experiment, because this experiment only works if other people are brave enough to experiment with us.
This is very cool. So I think the message that Nathaniel has today is like, break out of your fear, come to Spirit Camp, and actually be a part of this experiment that is getting co-created. It's like the world's biggest experiment, seeing so many people from so many walks of life coming together, figuring out how to have a better way of living. Thank you so much, Nathaniel, for being here. This has been a great time talking with you. And thank you so much for all of you for watching this episode. Have a great day.
Thank you.